Welcome back, everybody, to Parley Podcast. This is episode number 36. If you are watching on YouTube, we're back, but we're just back at a different time. So from now on, if you haven't missed it, we'll be live 7 o'clock every Sunday night to talk everything about Spurs. If you are listening on any podcast platform, again, we are here. It's just going to come out a little bit later, and it'll probably come out on Mondays rather than Saturdays. So anyway, let's crack straight into it. My name is Luke. Welcome back. I'm joined by my co-host, Wynnie. Wynnie, how you doing, mate? Your audio is, for some reason, not working at all now. We'll move on to Dara from Spurs Views. Dara, how are you doing?
All good, Luke. Yeah, absolute pleasure to be back here, man. Yeah, doing good, man. I'm glad to get back into this now. I know I've been in hiatus there for a while, so yeah, no, glad to get back talking Spurs with you.
It's been a long time, mate. For those of you that don't know, when this channel was called Rivalry Aside TV, Dara came on quite a lot to talk about Spurs, and he's never been back on since we rebranded to Partly Podcast. So, mate, it's good to have you back on. Wynnie, are you okay?
I think so. Can you hear me all right now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. I was excited. It's all good to be back, mate. I'm liking this. I'm liking this new time. It suits me down to the ground. So hopefully now we kind of rebrand the time and stuff. Maybe we'll see some more views and stuff like that. But I mean, it's still going to be the same old bullshit that we talk, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Exactly. But now we can drink beers and talk about Spurs. So it suits me better as well, to be honest. For those of you that are new to the channel, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe as well. If you are listening on any podcast platform, don't forget to hit the follow button and give us a 5-star review. Anyway, enough of that shit. Let's get into it. Yesterday, Tottenham lost to Aston Villa 2-1. It was just, again, like I kind of say a brief statement before we kind of get into you guys' thoughts, but kind of the game as an overall, like what is happening to this football club? Like it's just every single week, game after game, match after match. It doesn't matter if you've got Antonio Conte, doesn't matter if you've got Christian Stellini, doesn't matter if you've got Ryan Mason. The life and the blood has been sucked out of this team, and I genuinely at this point don't know where we go, because it's not a simple change as Levy out, Enoch out, if that's what you're into. It's not a simple change as bring in Poch, Nagelsmann, neither of them are coming, so some other, two-bit manager from across Europe. And it's not as simple as sack everybody in the squad and then rebuild. Like, it's a real problem at this moment in time. And, people might think, oh, maybe being dramatic. But I'm not. Like, this is serious right now. And I really don't know where we go, because I think we go back 7-8 years before we start again. But Dara, what are your thoughts on the game as a whole?
I thought it was pitiful, to be honest with you. I thought it was atrocious. I couldn't say too many good words about any player that played. We lacked energy. We lacked any sort of quality on the ball. There was no cohesion between the forward press and the midfield press. There was too much gaps in behind. We didn't get our midfielders on the ball enough. Couldn't get the crosses in. Porro tried a good few times to try and get his crosses in. I don't even remember any of his crosses actually reaching the box. They were constantly getting closed down, too slow. Yeah, the defender was poor. It was just, I said at the time, it was actually really hard to watch. We're a really difficult team to watch. And just watching Brighton there battering Arsenal, as much as that's absolutely brilliant, it just kind of shows how it showed me as well. I was like, I'm so jealous of Brighton and Hove Albion. Like the way they can play football is insane. I know they got absolutely trashed last week, 5-1 by Everton, absolute relegation fodder. But in general terms, they're everything that we're not at the moment. They're a well-run club from the top to the bottom, and it shows on the field. So, yeah, I was watching the game, and obviously I was delighted that Arsenal lost, but at the same time I was going, wow, that Brighton team is something else. Like their press, their energy, their understanding of each other, they're everything that I want Spurs to be. And it just depressed me as much as it brought me joy, obviously. But yeah, the game against Villa was horrendous viewing, to be honest. And I know we got that consolation goal. And I don't know how many times we were offside. That I think I counted.
I do, and I'm going to bring that up later.
Because it was just insane. It was It was tear your hair out stuff. I was like, would we just stay on side? You could see what we were trying to do, and I see it. Like they were playing a high line play over the back, but we weren't able to. It's just we weren't able to keep the heads. Weren't able to find that correct ball, time our runs, just basic stuff. It just was so poor.
It's awful, isn't it? And look, you talked about being jealous of Brighton. This is a team where I don't know the exact numbers, but maybe like 15, 20 years ago, they were like this close to going out of business altogether. Yeah. And now they are a better football club than we are. And it's as simple as that. Wynnie, give me kind of your overview on yesterday's dreadful match.
I mean, where do we start? It's literally been summed up perfectly there. It was exactly what we expect from Tottenham these days. We usually you can turn up to a game and be, I wonder which Tottenham are going to turn up, whether we're going to be the exciting, free-flowing Tottenham or the defensively poor and very shy, kind of timid Tottenham. But we just only have one Tottenham now, and that's the Tottenham that just don't seem to have any cohesion. We just seem to roll over for any side now. It used to be we'd roll over for the big six at the time or whatever it would be, but now we seem to be. I fully expect us to roll over against Brentford next week, because I say they've got something to play for. I think they can still reach like Conference League and stuff like that. So they've still got something to play for, and it's just again there was just nothing there. Like I watched the game as soon as we went 1-0 down. There genuinely wasn't one part of me that thought we were going to get back into that game. And no matter what team, no matter who we were playing against, let's say last season or maybe the season before or season before that, under Poch, specifically, even if we were 2-0 down, I would have thought that we would get back into the game. But we just don't seem to have that spark about us anymore. And, it's a sad time. We have no direction. We have no idea who our manager is going to be. But in terms of yesterday, it was, I live in and around Birmingham, so quite a few people I know are Villa fans, and they're having quite a good season. A few of them are getting out of their prams a little bit because that's what teams do when they get up there, and rightfully so because they're having a good season. But I expected them to give us no time on the ball. That's exactly what we got. And at the minute, if you can press Tottenham Hotspur, you're gonna be successful. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to go through some of the talking points now in the game and kind of get into it a bit more. So we'll start off with the first goal, Wynnie. We'll come back to you. Ramsey scored. I've written down here because I actually wrote some notes. This is the first week ever, everyone, and I've been doing this channel for years, even though no one watches. I've been doing this channel for years, and I never write any notes ever, right? I just say whatever I want. I actually wrote notes today, and I put, like, Højbjerg, first of all, lost Ramsey, and then it was left to Pedro Porro to try and mop up, who also didn't mop up. And this is a formation which worked against Crystal Palace, right? When he went for the same formation, and it just doesn't work. Giving Pedro Porro any defensive duties whatsoever is just pointless, in my opinion. Like, and this is one thing that I don't think we can blame Daniel Levy for, because every single Spurs fan argued till the cows come home about getting this deal done. We now have the player that we want, and he's taking a very long time to get into it, isn't he? Now, I'm not blaming him. I think that we need a lot more structure in terms of how he's played, and I think eventually he will play a lot more advanced and be given less defensive duties. But yeah, talk to me about that first goal, because it's just so simple, isn't it?
It's as simple as that. And I mean, we can sit down and analyze it as much as we want, but it's as simple as it was just lapsed defensively, and that seems to be Tottenham at the minute. We look back at the Newcastle game. Wow, horrendous. I mean, a couple of their goals were good, but still lapsed defensively. We go to the United game, lapsed defensively, and the Liverpool game, lapsed defensively. That just seems to be the reoccurring theme at the minute. Like you say, Højbjerg lost his man, which isn't, again, that's a regular occurrence now. I know, obviously, there's the strong opinions on this channel of Højbjerg amongst H and Dave. I won't, get involved if I can help it, but I do still like Højbjerg. I think what he offers, what we got him for as well, was an absolute steal at the time. I think we've got his money's worth out of him, but again, he lost his man, and we know, as you touched upon with Pedro Porro, our fullbacks, the system that we play and the system we've always played, is our fullbacks don't really or shouldn't have to defend, because we want them to be as high as possible. So we don't traditionally buy defenders or create defenders and coach them in a defensive way. So look, we knew what we were getting with Pedro Porro. We knew what we were getting. We were getting someone who was really, really good offensively, but probably a bit suspect defensively. And again, that's shown in the goal. So again, it was just a carbon copy of all the goals that we seem to be conceding at the minute. Just lapse in concentration, and before you know it, 1-0 down.
Yeah, Dara, talk to me a little bit about Pedro Porro, because I don't think, as I said, he was fully at fault. To touch on Winnie's point, then I think Højbjerg is now a sellable asset in terms of he's now at a point in which we could actually make money from him, and I think, as a footballing club, as we know how our owners work, that is the time in which you want to sell him, but they won't, because they'll never sell anyone, because they don't like selling things. But yeah, talk to me about Pedro Porro and opening goal for Aston Villa.
Yeah, I think when he hit the nail in the head there, to be honest with you, he is not the player probably that we thought he was, but I do think he will be. I think you can see enough in Porro's game where if you utilize his best assets, he can be huge for the club. And I thought he was brilliant against Palace. I have to say, just with that cover behind him with Emerson, I thought that really made a difference to his game. But yeah, he really does have to improve his defensive side. Even his tracking at times, he can be a bit slow to get back. And he's a pacey guy; he should be getting back quicker. And yeah, his positional play isn't good enough at the moment. But I am definitely willing to give Porro time. I think there's a serious player there, and if we use him in the right way, I think he could be massive for us. But yeah, that Villa goal, it was just so easy, wasn't it? It was just, they were just going through the motions, little cross back, simple goal, and that was a lovely finish by Ramsey. To be fair, he had a tight space to work with, but at the same time, they're the kind of goals you're kind of going, that's there's no big massive onus on us when we're pressing. There's no. It just kind of looked like, they were kind of looking around each other, kind of going, whose fault was that? Was that my fault? Oh, well. It didn't seem like they cared a whole lot about what just happened. It was like, oh, yeah, here we go again kind of thing. And I don't know how many times we have to say it. Like, all we want as Spurs fans is to actually just see our players making a bloody effort. And it shows with Danjuma. Like, I would say Spurs fans, we're demanding, but at the end of the day, what we want to see is a bloody effort, that we're going out there to do our best to try and win. We're not expecting league titles. We're not expecting to be winning every game, but to be losing games in the manner we are at the moment with just a whimper, it's pathetic, to be honest. It's not good enough at all. And as you said at the start, Luke, I don't really know what the big solution is going to be, because we're in serious trouble of becoming a mid-table side for the next 4 or 5 years, because the teams that are slacking this season have even picked it up. The likes of Liverpool, United have been on off, Newcastle, like they're all going to be above us. Liverpool, not Liverpool, I said Liverpool, Chelsea, I expect them to be coming back. I won't even speak about that situation because it's too hard on the heart at the moment, but I do expect a lot of those teams to be better, and I can only see us getting worse at the moment. It's going to take something miraculous. It's going to take a Pochettino style appointment to really lift the club, because it just reminds me of that time when we just sacked AVB and we'd Sherwood. It was like, we are done out here, and then Poch saved us. So it's going to take something like that, an absolute miracle. And we just have to hope that we get it.
Yeah, definitely. Evening to Johnny in the comments. Thanks for joining us. A regular used to join us on our Saturday morning show, so it's good that you finally found us on this Sunday evening. I want to quickly touch on that, actually, that you said there, Darren, because you talked about his positional play. So against Palace, because I know you're at the Palace game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so against Palace, what annoyed me a little bit about him, because he was all right, The problem with him is his positional play, as you say. Like, for a couple of chances in that game, from what I remember, he didn't make enough effort to get to the edge of the box when the crosses came in. But then he doesn't make enough effort to go the other way. So in my opinion, he's kind of just stuck, doing a little bit. Yeah, like he's kind of not too far forward, but not too far back either.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought at the Palace game he was practically playing as a winger, and that suits him. Like, he didn't track back practically at all because Emerson pretty much had a handle on that right side. He was brilliant, Emerson. So Porro's defensive duties were kind of off the table. But like, going forward, he is going to have defensive duties. If you're going to be playing, I know it's a wing back role. It's not a really major issue defensively, but you do need to improve. Like, I mean, it's basic stuff, really. To be honest, we're talking about here. We're not expecting like him to be flying into challenges and winning every ball and winning every duel, but it's basics, like you said about that Ramsey goal at the weekend. It's just getting in front of that man and knowing where that ball is going to come. That's your job, man. And like, you'd have to say, like, that's such a simple thing to add to your game. You need to work on that, and he does. He needs to work on that big time. There's a lot of players actually in that squad who need to work on the opposite side of their game. I'd say it's like the likes of Skip. He needs to work on his technical side of his game big time. Romero needs to work on cooling himself off and not conceding so many frees in dangerous areas like we did yesterday. But yeah, there's a lot of players that need to work on quite simple things, really, I would say, and they'd be 10 times the players that they are, because I do believe that we are a good team. We have good players in that team, and I would have no one argue that. Like, they're not a terrible bunch of players. They just look a lot worse than they are at the moment because of bone laziness and lack of leadership, really.
Yeah, definitely. Big up to Elias in the comments as well. And Johnny, I will get to your comments soon, but we will be touching on that towards the latter end of the show. So you've got to stay tuned for that chat. But I want to really quickly, before we move on, because obviously we talked about the first goal quite a lot. The one thing I want to say about Pedro Porro is he reminds me of when we signed Aurelio Gomez, right? So Aurelio Gomez saved the penalties against us, which knocked us out of what was, I don't know what it was at the time, UEFA Europa League, whatever it was called back then. I can't even remember now. And then after that, we signed him. And everyone was like, yes, this is a good keeper. And then he was nicknamed Hilarious Gomez. And then same happened with Pedro Porro. We played him in the Champions League twice. You're like, oh, this player looks quite good. We'll sign him. And then he comes to us and he's just trash again like everybody else. But no, I agree with you. There are definitely a lot of players in this team. I was talking with actually the original guys from this channel last night, Ben and Kieran, about Spurs and on WhatsApp, and I was saying to them that actually the squad isn't as bad as everybody thinks. Defense-wise, we need to get rid of a few defenders. But the rest of the pitch, like if you name the players in there, Kulusevski, Richarlison, Kane, Son, Bissouma, Bentancur, even Emerson Royale to a certain degree, Christian Romero, we've got Udogie coming next season, Pedro Porro. Like, there are some very good players there. It's just how they want to work out. But I want to touch now, Wynnie, on Christian Romero, because last week I absolutely laid into Christian Romero, and I'm still going to lay into Romero because, yes, people will say he saves us more than he makes mistakes, but his mistakes cost us, and they cost us big time. And yesterday it happened again. He gave away a free kick at the edge of the box, and then what happens from there is Aston Villa score a free kick and go 2-0 up. Talk to me about it.
Look, you can't. Look, I'm not going to sit here and defend him. Look, last week, obviously, I made my views on Romero very clear, and I think he has the potential to be one of the very best in Europe. That has the potential to be. Not he isn't right now, but he definitely has the potential to be. Look, you can't odds for giving a free kick away. How many free kicks does anyone give away? And they happen to be a free kick that either someone swings in and ends up at nothing. It just happened to be that the Romero one, yes, it was a dangerous position to give a free kick away. However, the chances out of 10, how many times are they gonna put it in the goal? So I will say that, but yes, it was very silly, very rash. And he hasn't done me any favors after my appraisal of him last week. He's definitely done me dirty. But look, like I said, there's like we touched upon with Porro, there's a player in there 100% with the right coaching and everything, he can be one of Europe's best, because we've seen what he's got, his ability to be able to come out with the ball. He's so comfortable with the ball at his feet. You don't find defenders like that. It's very rare you find a defender that's so comfortable, because the amount of times that he's picked the ball up and he's broke the lines and knocked it into Bentancur into the midfield, and Bentancur's turned and done his bit and knocked it to Kane, and we've scored. So yes, I'll admit that he's definitely more rash than he needs to be, and he definitely costs us a lot more than he probably saves us. But I stick by what I say, and there's a player in there, and if we can unlock that potential, then we have a serious player on our hands. But again, who is the person to unlock it? We don't know.
No, that's a very, very good question. I don't think the board know either. Dara, who is more at fault for the second goal? Is it Christian Romero or is it Fraser Forster for standing about fucking 5 yards to the right, and then Douglas Luiz just says, "All right then, sound," and just pops it in the other side?
Yeah, no, I actually think every team is going to give away frees, and I know I had a bit of a pop at him there, and rightfully so. It's just because he does it all the time, Romero. And you're going to give away frees in a game. That's fair enough. That's his style. We're going to have to accept that, I think, because he's not going to change. And I think even if he was to change his style, I think probably wouldn't be as good a defender as he is. So it's probably just a part of his game that we're going to have to become more accustomed to, unfortunately. But Fraser Forster's got to be saving that, man. It was a good free kick. It was on target. It was a good height. But I mean, Forster got a big glove to that. And if he was, as you said, he was so far right, if he was even a yard, but even as the ball was flying over, I was like, move quicker.
Yeah.
And I know he's getting on Fraser. What is he, 34, 35? But I mean, just move.
Oh, calm yourself down with those comments.
As a footballer, man. Don't worry. I wasn't a pop. But no, he just needs to move that millisecond faster, man. He would have saved it. That wasn't the best free kick. I would say most top keepers would have saved that. So yeah, no, I would have to probably give more of the blame to Fraser for that one. But yeah.
Unless you're Jordan Pickford, and if you saw the free kick he missed today.
Yeah, that is very true. That is very true. I really hope we don't get him in the summer, by the way. I hope he's very, very far down the list of replacements. But yeah, goalkeeper is one of our major issues as well, I have to say. As much as our defense is, goalkeeper, having a top quality goalkeeper is essential in the modern game, even with how much they utilize the ball with their feet now. And you see how much of an asset those keepers are to those clubs. That needs to be priority, probably number one, even in the summer, alongside a centre back. Those two, they are dead cert, need to get sorted very, very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. And you're right with Fraser Forster, because it's all good and well standing that side, because what he's doing is saying, okay, put it to my left. But then he did. And then, as you say, Fraser Forster moved maybe when the ball started to sort of approach him. What you'd expect is him to then start moving as the ball is struck. And then that's how they get the elevation and be able to palm the ball away. But he seemed to just stand there and then go, oh, shit, yeah, I need to actually move now, yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. It's crazy, isn't it? So we did get a goal back with a penalty. The big question is was it a penalty? Did Harry Kane dive? Is the big question going around today in group chats that I'm in, especially. Or do you call it clever, or do you think it is a goalkeeping error? Dara, I'll come to you first on that.
I think it's a stonewall pen, to be honest. I said it straight away when they were going to VAR. I was like, this is a 100% penalty. Yes, Kane leaves the legs in. How many times I've seen players doing that, not just Kane, but yes, Kane does do that. He does leave the leg in when he knows. And to be fair, the ball would have gone straight out of play. If the keeper hadn't touched Kane, the ball was gone straight out of play. It would have been goal kick. So it's clever. It is clever, but it's a stonewall penalty. He takes him out. It's I suppose, aside to Kane's game that I like, it's not breaking the rules. It's kind of bending them, I suppose, to suit him. And other clubs hate it, of course they do, but they would bash Kane regardless, just because of the club he plays for. So, to be honest, if it was any other team, if it was against us, I would have absolutely no issues with it whatsoever. I wouldn't even say it was a goalkeeping error as such. He probably dived in a little bit more than he should have, but yeah, it was just more clever from Kane than anything really. And to me, it's a stonewall pen.
So Johnny, the Arsenal fan, Dara, has said, I call aside the Saints penalty decision. Every decision this season, apart from that one, has gone Tottenham's way. What do you think?
No, come on. That's a bit of nonsense now, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, every club gets decisions and every club doesn't get decisions. I mean, that's the way the game is, you know, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. We've been very unlucky in the past with VAR as well. Yes, VAR has been our friend a few times this season, absolutely. I won't dismiss that whatsoever. But I think as opposing fans, you generally do think that the other team is getting more luck than you. You know, it's kind of like a poor me thing. Like, and I wouldn't buy that.
Wow. Has Spur TV has said, I don't think it was a penalty. Kane dived over Martinez's foot. This is the thing, right, Winnie, is that every team does it. Every player does it. You know, let's look at Mo Salah. Let's look at the likes of Jesus. I can't think of any other Arsenal players right now. Saka, maybe. Let's look at Marcus Rashford, right? Everybody does it. It's just you don't like it when it's not your player. And that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Like, at the end of the day, Harry Kane flicks the ball over the goalkeeper and he's taken out. He does drag his legs. You know, this is the way that the modern game is going. If they don't want it to go like that, don't allow it to happen, you know? But the other argument, I suppose, Winnie, is that, as Dara said, the ball was going out of play. So realistically, did the keeper fouling Kane actually make any difference? And that's the bit that I'm always a bit confused about. Lastly, right, is that everybody will try and bash Harry Kane regardless, won't they? And in the end of the day, it meant nothing and we still lost the game. So why has everybody got the knickers in a twist?
Oh, look, do you know what? It's a stonewall penalty. Let me just get that out there. An absolute stonewall penalty. You know, again, if it was against us, I'd be saying the exact same thing. It's a stonewall penalty. If because we've seen it before with Hugo. Hugo's done it many a times when he's raced out and has tried to collect the ball. The player's nicked it round him and he's brought him down. I think it comes up for debate. You see it before, and I think that you touched upon Rashford, because Rashford is an absolute killer for this one. Not the one that is very similar to Kane. What Rashford does is he skips the ball around a player and leaves his leg behind. Now that's different. That is literally anticipating contact. Martinez came out with, you know, full stretch. Kane's knocked the ball away from him. Kane hasn't moved. He hasn't left any legs in. He's literally just fell straight over him. It's silly from the goalkeeper. But yeah, no, stonewall penalty. And as you said, it made no difference anyway. So what does it really matter? Let's be honest. But it was a stonewall penalty. Kane dispatched it exactly as I expected. But sadly, it made very little to the game. But yeah, people will bash Harry Kane because of who he is and what he is and who he plays for. You know, it's going to be a sad day when he leaves the club, if he leaves the club. We don't, again, when and if, we still don't really know. I've got a feeling that he will probably leave this summer, but, you know, it'll be a sad day when he does. But look, Harry Kane brings what he does. He's very clever at what he does. He's in my opinion, the best striker in Europe. So he knows exactly what he's doing. And, you know, how many penalties and stuff has he won like that? It's not cheating. Like you say, it's almost like bending the rules, but I wouldn't change him for the world. And like you say, it made no difference. So who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Like the one thing they need to worry about a lot more before they start worrying about people leaving their legs in is the fact that the average time the ball is in play in the majority of Premier League games is approximately 48 minutes. So we're seeing 48 minutes of ball in play, and the referees do nothing about that. I remember last weekend I watched Newcastle Arsenal, and it was just a tragic display of football because the ball was never in play. It stopped, it started. Goalkeepers took their time. Newcastle are as bad as Arsenal are for it. It's awful, and that will never change, and they will never give easy yellow cards. So do you know what? Let's just move on with our lives because there's a lot of other things to worry about. Now, after that happened, Son put the ball in the back of the net. But lo and behold, we were offside. I'll give you both a guess. Do you know how many times we were offside, Winnie?
I would hazard a guess I'm going to say it was 10 plus. So let me just say 12.
Okay, Dara.
Yeah, I'd say 11.
All right, you both have ruined this game because it's actually 9.
Oh.
So it was 9 offsides, according to the app that I did some research on today. 9 times we were offside in that game. And I watched Match of the Day and they analysed it. And they analysed the runs from Ian Wright. And every single run from a Spurs player was dead straight. In that last kick, first of all, Christian Romero holds onto the ball for too long. But when he does release the ball with a great pass to Son, great touch, great finish, it was classic Heung-min Son. Again, he just runs in a straight line. There was a moment in the first half where Richarlison was through and he did some kind of weird aerial kick that went over the bar. But again, he is looking directly down the line of defenders and yet still decided to just run in a straight line. This is the basics of basic football. To look along the line and not be offside. I can understand if it's a shoulder blade. I can understand if it's a nose, a toenail. Do you know what I mean? But Dara, how have we been offside 9 times in this game? And especially in the last minute when we could have snatched the draw, which we didn't deserve, we're offside again.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely disgraceful. I actually counted up until 20 minutes because there was 4 offsides in the first 20 minutes. 4 in 20 minutes, and 3 of them were Richarlison. I was like, what are you doing, man? And again, as you say, and I said it earlier, it's basics. It really is. You're making yourselves look so much worse than you actually are when you're making simple errors like that. I mean, just look across the line. You can see where the man is. Bend your run so that you're running towards the defender. So you're like, okay, there's the line. Now run. But no, it was just unbelievable because Villa's high line, it was there to be exploited. It really was. Now, in fairness to Villa, they're really well drilled. That line was amazing, in fairness, I have to say. Fair play to Emery for that one. But it was there to be exploited. And to be fair to Longley and Romero, they tried it time and time again, over the top. And every single time we were offside. I have to say, the quality of our finishing worried me a little bit yesterday as well. No, we were offside for nearly all of them. But the finishing was terrible, man. Richarlison's, he was straight in. And rather than taking a touch and finishing it off, he just, as he did this weird scissor kick that he must have seen in some sort of, I don't know, kung fu film or something, because it was just insane, man. Son's miss, I was like, Genie Mac, if any of them were actually onside, they'd be in a highlight reel for someone who misses the season, But yeah, I didn't even celebrate Sonny's goal at the end because I was like, this is 1,000,000% offside. You could see it straight away. Yeah. It was really, really frustrating. And yeah, it was surprising because it isn't like us to be trying those over the top balls all the time. So obviously it looked to me like it was a tactic that Mason had probably spotted that it was a high line during the week and said, lads, we're going to play a lot of over the top through balls and we're going to get Richarlison and Son to run onto them. So it was obviously a tactic that didn't work and it just made us look awful, to be honest with you. And it meant that the midfielders weren't getting on the ball as much and we had much less possession. So ultimately it was just really poor viewing.
Yeah, Wynnie, so that's actually a good point, to be fair, because, it is good knowledge and understanding from Mason to understand that, and especially those two, Longley's passing or long-range passing is actually something that's quite underrated in his game. But, this is schoolboy level, isn't it? To just try and stay on side. As I said, we can appreciate if they are slightly offside, but you can't appreciate anything that was going on yesterday.
No, what I will say, obviously, it as we've said, we've touched upon. I don't need to touch upon it again. It is basic. As a striker, you're taught to bend your run just to make sure that you stay on side. Obviously, with VAR now, you probably need to. You can probably err on the side of caution slightly because if you are slightly onside, VAR will pick it up. So I kind of get that side of it. But especially if you're on the far hands, the far right or left hand side, and you're looking across that line, there's no excuse because you can see every single player in that defensive line. There's no excuses. But what I will say is, and it's something that I noticed a few times, Yes, okay. So Villa were playing a very, very high line, and as we said, they were very well drilled, and it was a fantastic line because they were as straight as an arrow. There was no player out of place, and that's how you kind of defeat this high line. Is if one of their players is slacking, they're leaving you on side. But what I will say is the balls from Romero and Longley, I think they were just delayed too much, and that was part of the problem. I think the runs were okay because it's something that these are professional footballers. They know what they're doing. But I think, especially for Son, he was making these kind of bended runs, but the ball from Longley and Romero was far too late. And by the time they had made that run and made the decision to pass the ball, we were offside. So, yes, it's good for Mason to spot this. But I think it was for that. The main problem really was just the balls coming from Romero and Longley being too delayed. But again, it's basic errors from the strikers. So, it's dangerous to play a high line, but when you're that well drilled at it, it's a great tactic to use, and it clearly worked yesterday for Villa. So,
yeah, definitely. Come back to you, Wynnie, quickly. Johnny's asked a lot of questions today, so I'll actually answer one for once. Just in a couple of words, talk to you about Kulusevski. Keeps, don't keep, and why is his form dropped?
100% keep. He's shown more than enough for me to give that answer. Why he's been poor this season, I don't know. Whether it's a tactic thing, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. He could be lacking confidence. Every player goes through it. Remember, Harry Kane didn't usually start scoring until however late into the season it was, and that's obviously he's overcome that kind of that fear that he used to have. So it could just be a confidence thing. But no, he's not a one-trick pony. He's not found out 100%. He's there again. We're talking about there's a player in there unlocking his potential. We need to find the right system to do that and the right manager to do that. But yeah, no, for me, 100% keep. That's one of the no-brainers.
I think this is nonsense, Darrow. What do you think? Maybe he doesn't want to stay. He
No.
was a two-bit player, part player at Juventus, never got any game time. He's loved at Spurs. Why the chuff would he not want to stay?
Yeah, no, I really don't buy that at all. And I can understand people's frustrations with Kulusevski this season based on how good he was. Last season, I don't think anyone expected him to be as good as he was, which is why then obviously we have elevated expectations of what he will be this season. And obviously he has been majorly disappointing. I think he still has 6 assists, and they were, if I'm right about this, I could be wrong, but I think 5 of them were before his injury. I do think that injury has played a big role in his downfall. Now, how serious that injury was, I don't know. To be honest, I don't even remember what exactly he injured, but he hasn't been the same since he came back. And when he said there, whether that's a tactical thing and the amount of disruption of the club maybe hasn't suited him and things like that, there can be a lot of stuff going on in a player's life that kind of comes out years afterwards, and they say, oh yeah, this time this was happening, and you start to understand why he was behaving in the way he was. But at the moment, for us looking at him, he's been dropped for Richarlison, and Richarlison isn't exactly playing extremely well, so it just kind of shows there's obviously something not right with Kulusevski at the moment. Is that maybe perhaps that he was playing with an injury, maybe? But I definitely don't think he's a one-trick pony either. I saw that comment. Like, he has the ability to go straight down the line, take a man on, or cut back and put a cross in on the left. But yeah, I just think much like Sonny this season, they just needed momentum, and we as a club have had no momentum, and a lot of players thrive on momentum. Like, Sonny has never been able to get any sort of momentum this season, and he's looked a shadow of himself. Kulusevski's the same. Like, even yesterday when he cut in and he bent that shot around, and I was praying, I was like, oh, please go in for him, just one, because you could just see it in him. He was so frustrated, he was looking up to the heavens, and he was like, basically, I'd say, saying to himself, it's just not happening for me at the moment. So I think a regroup in the summer and 100% keep. I can't believe we're even having the conversation about potentially not keeping him. He has to be 100% kept.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, it's an obligation anyway. So I don't even know why it's a conversation, but 100%. And he'll be backfiring next season. I definitely believe that.
Yeah, I think there's 2 reasons for lack of form. Number 1, Rodrigo Bentancur.
Yeah,
I
good
think
point.
those two together play magnificently. And number two, Antonio Conte sucked the absolute blood out of this football team, which he does at every club that he goes to. And so I think that's why. I think you're right. I think his lack of confidence. Let's not forget, people, this is a 23-year-old lad. He's a big 23-year-old. He must have had a hard paper round. But, you know, these things happen, right? I don't know what the club would be thinking because I think it's minimal money as well to buy him. It's not a large amount of money, compared to, let's say, Richarlison, who's been. I don't even want to get started on Richarlison right now, to be honest. But yeah, I think 100% keep as well. Right, very quickly before we move on to next week's game, I want to talk about Nagelsmann or Nagelsmann, however you like to pronounce his name, because the news yesterday, Friday night, broke that the talks are broken down between Spurs and Nagelsmann, and he is no longer considered for a job at Tottenham Hotspur. Dara, in as briefly as you can, tell me what you think's happened there and your thoughts on that, because I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, he stuck two fingers up to Daniel Levy is exactly what happened there. I can't believe they even tried to run with the line that he wasn't considered and we didn't talk to him. Like, that is pure and utter nonsense. It's been well documented for months that he was Spurs' number one target by practically every Spurs journalist that we know. So to try and run with that line, it's just absolutely bananas. Yeah, he said he probably wasn't convinced by the absolute muck that we were shoveling him, unlike Conte and Mourinho, who obviously believes the nonsense that they were spouting in that interview. But yeah, I'd say he wasn't conned. I'd say he didn't like the fact that we didn't know who our next sporting director was going to be. Probably didn't like the look of the squad, what we were saying in the interview, probably, or not even in the interview, but in the process or whatever, in the phone calls, and said, "Yeah, lads, no way, not a hope am I going to eat." I thought, actually, I really did think we'd get him. I did. Maybe that's the romantic in me or something.
It's easy to get someone when you're competing against yourself, but Spurs can compete against themselves and still lose.
Yeah, this is it. Like, I mean, we had a clear run at him. There's no big team that needs a manager right now, and we still couldn't get him. So that pretty much says it all, really. Yeah, it's a big downer. I thought we'd get him, and I thought he would be excellent for us. So it's quite disappointing.
Yeah, Wynnie, there's rumours circulating around that at Bayern Munich, he had problems with a lot of the players, had problems with a lot of the, upper level management. Do you think that has anything to do with it? Do you think it's a big issue that he skateboards into training? Or do you think that Dara is right and he just said, do you know what? I'm not interested because A, your head of all footballing activities, Scott Martin, I don't even know what the fella's job title is, doesn't even start Spurs because he's on gardening leave until the 1st of July. He's going to say and have some point in saying who the director of football is. And then the director of football will have a say on who the manager is. And none of this can really happen until July starts, and then it's pre-season. Do you think he's just not asked and thinks, do you know what, this club is a shambles?
I am gutted. I'll be honest, I am gutted because I thought he was the saviour. And why I don't know. I just had that feeling in me that he was going to be the one to take us back to where we should be and where we want to be. And look, it's as simple as that. We're saving face now by saying that he's not considered as a target. He was our number one target. We've shown an interest. We've had these preliminary talks, and he has literally gone, "Yeah, not for me, thank you very much." And Daniel Levy being Daniel Levy, doesn't want to admit that we've been rejected by him. And it's as simple as that. Look, I am gutted because, like I say, I thought he was the one. And what we need to be doing now, obviously, I don't want to talk about it too much. I know we probably don't either, but the Pochettino to Chelsea, I desperately wanted Poch back. He was my number one choice from the start. And that wouldn't have changed. And that still hasn't. I mean, it's probably changed a little bit now he's going to Chelsea because as much as I loved him, I've got that little bit of resentment in me now because, no matter how much he's out of a job at the minute and he wants to get back into it, you just don't go to Arsenal or Chelsea. But he has. So look, we have to get over it. I thought Poch would have been a great choice to come back. But similarly, I thought Nagelsmann was the man. So what we need to be doing now that obviously Poch to Chelsea's got the here we go, we need to be going straight back to Nagelsmann and going, look, I'm really sorry. Please, we'll do whatever you want. Like, you pick the sporting director, you hire him. That's absolutely fine. Like, bring him in with you, pick who you want, whatever players you want. Look, we've got these players. Harry Kane, he's going to stay. He's told me if you stick around, you're going to stay. You're going to have this. You're going to have that. We need to be doing that right now, and we need to be doing it quick because there's no one else out there. That I looked at our list. Obviously Xabi Alonso being the current favourite doesn't excite me whatsoever. And I get the Pochettino links before he came to us at Southampton. He was hadn't made his name as a manager yet. But these names that are on that list just don't excite me one bit. The only one that I like is Slot. And he's just won the Eredivisie with Feyenoord. I know we've had a discussion about this, Luke. But look, it's one of those that it's literally he's just won the Eredivisie. I know Ajax are having a bit of a poor season, but it's still that they've won it quite clearly. So if I'm going to pick someone on the current crop that we have, it's Arne Slot. Unless we can try and convince Nagelsmann to come.
We've got lots of friends in the chat today. So anyway, let's go back to Derek, right? One word answers from both of you, and we'll come back to Wynnie. Who do you think our next manager will be?
Graham Potter.
Dara.
Slot.
This is difficult, isn't it? Very, very difficult. Because right now I see nobody that I want as our manager. I don't even know a lot about Slot, I'll be quite honest, but I might actually start looking. But everyone's talking Slot, so I'm going to say Slot. But we'll go back around again, Dara. And who do you want to be the manager?
The only two men who I actually wanted as manager were Poch and Nagelsmann. So what I want clearly doesn't matter to the club. So I think at this stage, with what's left for us, again, I'm in your boat, Luke. I don't know a massive amount about Slot. I'll be brutally honest and say I haven't watched one of their games in the league. I've seen him a couple of times in Europe, but that's about it. I wouldn't even like to say anything positive. Oh my God. In fairness, big Slot fan there. Fair enough. I mean, I would probably agree with you. I would stay well away if I was Arne Slot. If he wanted to maintain his ever-growing reputation, I probably wouldn't go near Spurs at all. But yeah, he's probably right. Amorim is an interesting one, I think. The Sporting Lisbon manager, he's an interesting one. But yeah, between those two, Slot and maybe Amorim. But again, I don't know a massive amount about these managers, I'll be honest. Potter's not a bad shout, actually, Wynnie. I hadn't thought about it. I still think Potter is a top manager who got dealt a poison chalice. There was no one that could manage that team this season. No way. So yeah, that I wouldn't say no to that. And he's on the list. He's on the list at the moment in the betting odds and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Wynnie, who do you want?
Again, I'm just going to echo exactly what we've said. So, if we can convince him now, I want Nagelsmann. That won't change. There's still a part of me that thinks that we can still get him if we revise some of our terms and some of his demands if we bow down to them. But I fear that we need to do that quickly purely because there's going to be some teams sniffing around him. I want, out of the current crop, I want Slot. Again, I haven't watched a tremendous amount, but I've watched bits, and they are so quick in attack. Everything that Spurs used to be, it just kind of echoes what we used to be. So I like the thought of him, but again, I don't know a tremendous amount. But I am a massive admirer. However naff we were under him, Martin Jol. He was one of my favourite managers, just his personality, everything. And I think maybe it's just a bit of reminiscing about that. His slot just reminds me of Martin Jol. So maybe that's what it is. But Potter, I think, because obviously Potter he's still out of a job. I think we missed a trick in not getting him previously. And like you said, I don't think anyone could have gone into that Chelsea job and done a good job. It was just too big of a step for him. If he wanted to eventually get to those higher, those high teams, I think it would have been a natural progression to go Spurs first and then maybe make a step up. I think he's just jumped and ran before he can walk. So I want Nagelsmann. If Nagelsmann's a no, I want Slot, but I do think it will be Potter.
Okay. Arne Slot's magic in the comments, mate. You need to just take 5 minutes, relax, unwind, and just enjoy the rest of the show, because I'm about to blow your minds. The man I want is Ange Postecoglou from Celtic. This is the man that I want. This is the man that I think could do a good job at Spurs. I think it's the correct call in terms of what Daniel Levy will want economically and financially, in terms of his ability to be able to tap into the Asian market. A lot of people had to go at me on Twitter for this, but this is my reasoning. He plays good attacking football, quick throw-ins, likes to keep teams on their toes. As I said, he's worked in Asia, Australia, and obviously now in Scotland. I think that economically, for the way that Spurs want to grow their brand as a business, would work for Daniel Levy. But he is at 25-1, so don't stick your house on it. That's just my thoughts. But to be honest, might check out a bit of Slot, see what he's doing, just to wind up the fella in the comments.
Can I just add something to that quickly?
Yeah.
What I will say is, however, disassociated I am with Spurs at the moment, I am actually this probably will sound a bit silly, but I'm actually really excited.
Yeah, me too.
About the what the future holds, only because this manager that comes in now has to be a project manager. It has to be someone that wants to sit down, rip the whole club apart and start from the bottom. And for me, I'm quite excited about that because, again, hopefully it's someone, like we touched upon with Potter. I thought he would have been a good appointment because he's the type of person we've seen it. What he's done at Brighton, he would quite happily go in, and I think he's someone that would bow down to Levy's demands as well. I don't think he'd go in all guns blazing and say, Daniel Levy, I need this, I need that. So, however shit it is at the moment, I'm a little bit excited about that. I will say, just about what the future holds.
Yeah, perfect. Right, let's move on to the match preview for next week's game at home to Brentford. It's 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. Dara, do you have any optimism for the season that is left? Because if you're like me, I think the season is done. I'm really not asked. I think that, do you know what? It may be better. It may be better for Levy. It may be better for everybody if we get no European football whatsoever. If we take a complete season off, let's look at that other team that we don't talk about, where we have nothing else to play for and we have a serious point in which, Levy has to say, okay, there's no financial gains from getting in any of these European competitions because we're not in any. And, that might be a way. But do you also think that actually we have games to play for and that actually we need to start trying to play because next season's going to come around and, the players need to be focused?
Well, I've been kind of in two minds about the whole European excursions thing. I think I would like to play Europa League, but that Conference League, that was nightmarish. That gives me chills even thinking about that horrible time playing those teams from God knows where. I do definitely take the point of people that are saying we'd be better off not playing any European football. Give a little bit back to Levy, saying, yeah, there you go. This is what happens when you don't plan progressively. You don't get your money. You don't get your pay package. It's a bit of a two fingers up to him a little bit. I do understand that completely, but I do think Spurs. I would rather see Spurs in Europe than not in Europe. Definitely, I think Europa League preferably, obviously, but it's not looking likely at the moment. Anyway, I don't think we'll win our last 2 games. I think we might win. I think we actually might beat Brentford. I think we might beat Brentford at the weekend. It's our last home game. It could be, fingers crossed, it's not, but it could be Harry's last game, and I think we will want to finish the season as strongly as possible in front of the fans after what this season has been. I think Mason will have the players quite fired up for it, you'd like to think. And I think we might just beat Brentford. I think Leeds will probably turn us over, especially if they're in the relegation battle on the last game of the season. So I think this is probably the last 3 points that we'll get this season if we are to get them. But yeah, we need to see a completely different side than the one we saw on Saturday, or else we won't win on Saturday either, because Brentford are definitely no pushovers, and 12:30 kickoffs are always strange throughout the league. So it's certainly not I'm not saying we will definitely win. I'm really confident, but I just have a funny feeling that we will. But yeah, if we play like we did Saturday, we won't. But yeah, I'm kind of confident going into Saturday. Kind of.
Nice. At least someone's got some optimism. That's what I like to see. Wynnie, do you share Dara's optimism, or do you feel as disjointed as the majority of our fan base at the moment?
Yeah, no, I share the optimism. Again, there will be there's a lot of sentiment in the last game of the season at home, in particular with how bad our season has been. And it, like we said, it hopefully it isn't, but it could be Harry's last home game. So it'll be interesting to see jellyfish fans. What does that?
Jellyfish.
What does that even mean? But
yeah, jellyfish hospital.
Oh, bloody hell! But yeah, so I just think last game of the season at home. I think hopefully, like we said, the boys will be bang up for it. I share the optimism in the fact that I think we probably will win. But again, if we're defensively as poor as we have been, then Brentford will more than happily pick us apart. So I share the optimism, but I'm also on the side of I can't see us winning any game at the minute the way we're playing. So
yeah,
pick that one apart.
Last bit on this before we move on to score predictions quickly, Wynnie. Do you think it's a time now where Ryan Mason needs to revert back to what he knows best, which is 4-4-2 or 4? Do you know what I mean? Like, or 4-5-1, however he wants to play it, right? What we saw of him from his other time as interim manager, because we didn't see him playing 5 at the back then. He didn't like what Conte was doing the majority of time, from what I saw. So why is he persisting with it? Or do you think it's just kind of like, do you know what? We haven't got time. Let's just see out the season as best we can.
Let's not forget that we were crying out for 4 at the back for a while. Obviously, Conte was never ever going to do that because that's just Conte. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we saw 4 at the back against Newcastle, and look how that ended. I know that was a freak game and a freak result, and you know we were 4 down before we could even think about switching on, but. We saw 4 at the back against Newcastle and it clearly didn't work. I don't really know what the system is for us at the minute, or what we should do. I think we need to just see this season out, appoint a new manager that will bring in his own system, his own beliefs, his own tactics, and then just go from there. In terms of Mason, I don't think he needs to worry about it because I don't think he's going to be considered for the job in any way, shape or form, even with the poor names that we've got available. But I would like to see him stay within the club, or within the coaching staff in some capacity, because, you know, he has shown a lot of loyalty. So, but I definitely don't want him as our manager.
Okay, Dara, what do you think? Do you think he reverts back? Do you think he's just stick what he's got?
I think he'll probably play pretty much the same system. I don't mind what we're doing at the moment with that kind of staggered back 4-5 thing where Porro was almost playing as a winger. It just looked messy at the weekend, so I think tightening that up is majorly important. I think dropping a few personnel to shake things up is definitely necessary. I would get Basuma on the field if he's match fit. I'd get him in over Skip maybe. I'd probably get Perisic on the field. I'm not Perisic's biggest fan, I'll be honest, but he has shown a lot of quality in the last few games at least. Definitely a little bit of a resurgence there. I'd get him on probably. And I wouldn't mind getting Kulusevski in, for Richarlison. So, yeah, I think personnel changes would be enough, to be honest. But yeah, I think it's probably too late in the season to be completely ripping up the playbook now and trying something completely different. So I think for him, it's just about, picking the best 11 to try and see through the season. And yeah, I think it'd be no harm to see a few fresh faces on the field. Definitely Basuma. I thought he looked lively when he came on, even though he was poor at the start of the season. It'd be nice to see for him to see out the season in midfield.
Perfect. Elias has said, is that 100 plus that you're drinking? I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm drinking a cider brand, which I will not endorse. Talking about, Johnny has said, Luke, don't forget to answer my question. It's the end of the podcast. No idea which question it was because you've talked a lot of nonsense all the way through. So, quick fire question. I'll try and guess to see if it's the right one. Wynnie, would you rather Europa League, Europa Conference, or none at all?
Europa League. If we can't have Europa League and its conference, then none at all.
Okay, Dara.
Absolutely agree, 100%. Europa League, no Europe Conference.
Perfect. And lastly, gentlemen, score predictions for the game against Brentford. So, Wynnie.
3-1 Spurs, Harry Kane hat-trick.
Don't do that because then he'll just walk away, won't he? He'll cry. He'll walk around the stadium. Yeah, it's going to be awful. Dara?
I'm going to go 2-1. 2-1 Spurs.
Perfect. I'm going to go 1-0 Spurs. So we will put a poll on our Twitter account so you can either vote for who you think will get the correct score or you can put your own score prediction in there. But that kind of wraps us up for the show. So for those of you that are new to the channel, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. There's a lot of you in the comment section. Even Arnie Slots Magic, you've talked a lot of nonsense tonight, but, click the subscribe button because I've had to read every single comment. If you listen to us on any podcast platform, don't forget to hit the follow button and don't forget to leave us a 5-star review because we've been excellent as always. Dara, this has been an absolute pleasure, my friend. I'm glad to have you back on. I'm glad to have you finally back here again. Tell everyone how they can find you because your Twitter page is immense.
Yeah, guys, you can find me at SpursViews_ on Twitter. And if you're not already, lads, definitely get subscribing to the Park Lane podcast. They do brilliant stuff. So if you're here and you're watching, just click a simple button and get subscribing to the boys because they're brilliant. And yeah, Luke's been brilliant to be back on, I have to say. It's been a while, so yeah, felt good this one.
Mate, we've changed the time of our entire show just so you can come on. So we'll get you back on again. Wynnie, how can everyone find you?
Wynnie1991 on Twitter. All I will say is just don't forget to subscribe to this pod because we've changed the time now to suit us, but also to suit everyone else, hopefully, and we can try and help the channel grow. But if you ever want to speak up, just hit me up on Twitter, and Park Lane Pod on Twitter as well, and we'll definitely start chatting.
Perfect. Quick question, Dara: has he spelled your name right? Because I never know how you spell your name. But you don't have to say it out loud if you don't want to.
No, that's fine. It's D-A-F-A-D-A I-R-E. Do you know Fada is like the little accent in French?
Right. Oh.
It's very, very.
That didn't really help. Anyway, you can follow me if you want at Luke_Park Lane. But as everyone said, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. But also make sure you go and follow Dara on Twitter. That is Spurs Views _. Right. That's it for tonight. Thank you all very, very much for watching. Make sure you tune in next time. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.